Alright, the last thing about equations we're going to talk about is variables on both sides. So we have some variables on both sides. So when we look at it, everything we've done before, our variable has been only on the left side. But now if we notice, we have an x here and an x here. So to solve it when there's variables on both sides, we need to get the variable on one side. So we need to get them all on one side. So that's the first thing we got to do. So when we look at it, we have a 3x and a 2x. Well, the 2x is all by itself, so I need to get this onto this side. So what I really need to do is get rid of this 3x, actually. So I'm going to get rid of 3x, so I'm left with just my 2x. So to get rid of 3x, I can simply subtract it, because 3x minus 3x is 0. But according to my subtraction property of equality, if I subtract 3x from one side, I have to do it to the other side. So I have to subtract 3x here. So that's gone. I bring this down. Well, 2x minus 3x is negative 1x. And now to get x all by itself, I have to get rid of that negative 1, so I divide by negative 1. I did it to both sides. Well, the division property of equality, since I did it to both sides, allows me to do that. 4 divided by negative 1 is simply negative 4. So that's how I've determined what x is. So now I can check this. So my check will be 3 times negative 4 plus 4 equals 2 times negative 4. Well, this is negative 12 plus 4, and this is negative 8. You put this together, and it works out correct. So that's a check. When we look at the next one, once again we have fractions here, but we're not going to do anything different. Well, we notice we have a's on both sides, so it doesn't matter which one because they both have numbers, so we just have to decide which one we gotta get rid of. I'm going to get rid of my negative 1, so I'm going to add 1/4. If I add it here, I have to add it to the other side also. So we have to do it to both sides because that's the additive property of equality. Well, 1/4 plus 1/4 will give me 2/4, or actually 1/2. So 1/2 a plus 3 equals 10.5. And we should know how to solve these. Here's my a. Get rid of that 3, subtract 3. And since I did it to both sides, my justification, that's my subtraction property of equality. So 1/2 a equals 7.5, 10.5 minus 3. And now to get a by itself, I have to get rid of that 2, that denominator. So I multiply both sides by 2, multiply it by 2. So that's the multiplicative property of equality. And then we have a is equal to 7.5 times 2 is 15. And we can check this also. So we have 1/4 times 15 plus 3 equals 10.5 minus 1/4 times 15. So if we take a look at our calculator and we do, there's my 1/4 times 15 plus 3, I have 6.75 equals, and we have 10.5 minus my 1/4 times my 15, 6.75. So that's a true statement, so that checks out right. So we know that 15 is our correct answer. And the last question with our variables. Now this is a big term, so there's a lot going on here. When we look at the first thing, it says we've got to get rid of that parenthesis. Get rid of the parenthesis. We do this, which is called our distributive property. So the first thing we're doing is distributed. So distributive property allows us to do this. So I'm actually distributing that -3 because that's the term right out front. So 2y, I distribute my -3, so that's going to be -12y minus 15, because I'm distributing negative 3 to both of these, and it equals 7y plus 2. Now there's a few things we can do. Well, if we notice, well, there's variables on both sides, but there's also, I have two y's right here. So what I can do is I can put these y's together. So I can combine my like terms. Well, 2y minus 12y gives me negative 10y. And that was combining my like terms. So that's what I just did there. That allowed me to put them together, combining like terms. Now we can just write everything else down. So now we have our entire thing. And now we notice that I have a y over here and a y over here. They're on opposite sides. So they're on two opposite sides. So I have to get rid of one. I can only have y's on one side. Well, I'm going to choose to get rid of this negative 10y since it's negative. So I'm going to actually add, because negative 10 plus 10 is 0. So if I do 10y on this side, I have to add 10y over here, because that's what the additive property of equality tells me. If I add 10 to one side, I have to add it to another side. Well, 10y plus 7y is 17y plus 2, and this term is actually negative 15. Now we can subtract 2 from both sides. Well, the subtraction property of equality allows me to do that. I did it to both sides. Well, negative 17 equals 17y. To get y all by itself, simply divide both sides by that 17, and that's what the division property of equality tells me to do. So in this problem, we used almost all the terms. We used the division property, the subtraction property, the additive property. We combined like terms, and we distributed. And we get negative 1 equals y. Now these ones are good to check because you can easily make a mistake anywhere. So it's 2 times negative 1 minus 3 times 4 times negative 1 plus 5 equals 7 times negative 1 plus 2. Well, I'm just going to sit here and put the whole thing in my calculator to make it a lot easier on myself. So it's 2 parenthesis times negative 1 minus 3 parenthesis 4. Well, now I have a parenthesis times negative 1. Close that one because that's for my negative 1. Plus 5, and I close this parenthesis because this is for the whole thing right here. And I hit enter, and it gives me negative 5. So the left side is negative 5, and the right side, well, this is negative 7 plus 2 is negative 5. And there's my check. So it checks out correct. And that is using all of the steps and justifying each step that we are doing.